Techrot Encore, the first Warframe update of this year, is right around the corner and you want to be prepared. So, in today's video, I'm gonna tell you how to best prepare your personal Warframe account for the Techrot update to have a head start and get all the juicy rewards as fast as possible. Big shoutouts to all our generous channel members who helped me keep the lights on. And now, let's jump right into it. Okay, let's start out with the elephant in the room, and that would of course be the release date. When will Techrot Encore come out? And this is already confirmed. It'll come out next week on Wednesday, March 19th, so when you watch this, you have exactly 7 more days to prepare, and as you will soon see, you might actually need them, so let's get right into the nitty-gritty. The first thing we need to talk about would be, of course, the new Warframe Temple. As part of Techrot Encore, we will get Temple, and if you want to get them as fast as possible, then you can already do a little bit of pre-farming. See, while the blueprints to build Temple will only be obtainable once the update goes live, because there will be a specific defense game mode where you get them from, I would suspect that you probably need a fair chunk of Warframe 1999 themed resources to actually build Temple. So, just in case you are short on those, then you have 1 more week now to stock up. Equip your Warframe with a Loot Radar mod, put Resourceful Retriever on your companion, and as we all know, for resource farming, Necros is your best buddy. However, Temple is not the only thing here. Also with this update, we will get a couple new Skuldra-themed weapons, and just like with Temple, I would also suspect that we need Helvania resources to craft those. The next topic on our list, and this is probably the most important one, is max out your reputation with the Hex Syndicate in the Helvania Mall. See, in the last dev stream, when the developers were talking about what will come in this update, they specifically stated that the new activities that will be added require a certain Hex rank in order for you to even be able to play them. They said that some will be unlocked at Hex rank 4 already, but there will be also stuff that you only get access to once you have the max rank of 5, so my personal recommendation would be just max it out and you'll be fine. But reaching rank 5 is not the only thing. Ideally, you also want to go into the new update with the maximum possible standing, because as you will see in a minute here, there will be a few new items added with this update that you will be able to purchase from Hex standing, and I would suspect that you want a lot of them, so the more standing you have, the better. And if you would be so kind to leave the video a like, that would be much appreciated because it always helps the channel big time with the YouTube algorithm, so cheers so much for your support. Next, let's talk a bit more about Syndicate standing. As part of Techrot Encore, we will receive 4 new augments as well as 4 brand new arcanes. These ability augments will be for Wisp Soulgate, looked relatively good in the dev stream, for Komei's Omikuji, which I think is definitely needed to make Komei more viable, Korvex's Crucible Blast, turning the whole thing into a channel ability so you can keep it on for longer, which I think is going to make Korvex quite a bit more viable. And the last one will be for Gyre's Arc Sphere. Again, never really played Gyre yet, so no comment on the augments from my side. But the important thing to note here is that because Wisp, Korvex, and Gyre already got augments in the past, we can already tell from which of the 6 syndicates you're gonna get the new augments. So for the new Wisp augment, you'll have to go to Cephalon Suda or New Loka. For Korvex, Cephalon Suda or Steel Meridian. As for Gyre, her augments are from the Arbiters of Hexes or the Parent Sequence. However, unfortunately, because Komei hasn't gotten a single augment yet, I don't know which syndicate this will be added to. So, what that means for you is, if you want any of these augments, then make sure to rank up the respective syndicates so you can get them day 1, and this is a hot tip from my side if you want to make some sweet ka-ching for yourself, I would assume that many players want to get those augments day 1. So, especially in the first couple days after release, I think you can make a good chunk of platinum selling those augments in trade chat or on Warframe.market. Same thing goes by the way for the 4 new arcanes. Those will be obtainable in the Helvania Mall, and also here, especially in the first days after release, I think they'll sell for a good price. Next topic, Warframe reworks. Techrot Encore is going to deliver a whole chunk of reworks to individual Warframes as well as the Exalted weapon mechanic in general. I don't want to go all too much into the details on all the changes because I already talked about the whole topic in this video right here. In case you haven't already, feel free to check it out later. But the gist here is that Ashe, Atlas, Korra, and Gara will have their previously pseudo-exalted weapons turned into actually moddable exalted weapons, and I think specifically Ashe, Atlas, and Gara will benefit quite a bit from those changes. So, in case this sounds good for you and you want to try them out, then make sure to farm these Warframes ahead of time. But in general, every single Warframe in the game that uses an exalted weapon will also get buffed because all exalted weapons with the new update will receive an arcane adapter. Again, not going into the details here too much, but in general, we can suspect that most melee exalted weapons will ideally want to use melee influence, as well as specifically for Ashe, I think melee duplicate is gonna be very strong. So, in case you have a favorite melee exalted weapon and you don't have the right melee arcanes yet, then make sure to get them in advance. Same thing, by the way, goes for secondary exalted weapons. There are actually quite some of those, and I think here the most popular arcanes will be secondary Innovate for those secondary exalteds that have a relatively low base crit chance, or secondary Outburst or Cascadia Overcharge if the respective exalted weapon already has decent crit characteristics to work around. Though also one thing I should mention here is, especially secondary Fortifier is something that a lot of you brought up in the comments, especially in Eximus heavy situations. This is gonna be quite the blessing. As for primary exalted weapons, I think we only have one, and that would be Cyto 9 Sniper, right? And in that case, either go with primary Frostbite or Blight for more multi-shot and crit damage, or, since it is a sniper of course, primary Deadhead will also make it quite a bit stronger. Let's now though talk about the core part of the new update, and that will be the technocyte coda, or in other words, the infested liches with all the new infested lich weapons that they bring. If I'm not mistaken, then the devs said that we get 13 new lich weapons. But one thing to keep in mind with hunting those new liches is that the technocyte coda will not rely on the previous Requiem mod system that we used for the Grineer and Corpus liches, but will have their entire new system coming with the update. So unfortunately, there is no pre-farming that you can do for those hunts just yet. One thing that I do need to mention here, and that is also one reason why you should stock up on Hex Standing, is that for the technocyte coda weapons, you will not be able to generate them with an elemental progenitor of your choice, the way we did it with the Grineer and Corpus lich weapons, but rather the liches will drop a certain currency with which you can then go to Eleanor in the Helvania Mall and buy the technocyte weapon from that currency from her directly. Problem here being, you have no influence on which element will be on the weapon. However, this is not that big of a deal because Eleanor sells a second thing, that being a certain item, that you can use to change the elemental progenitor of any lich weapon in the game, also for Grineer and Corpus weapons, to whatever you like. So, long story short, you'll probably need a fair bit of standing to buy a couple of those items in order to set up your lich weapons with the elemental progenitor that you want. And speaking about the lich hunt in general, what we already know is that just like with Grineer and Corpus liches, the final showdown against the lich will happen in a railjack mission, so make sure that your railjack is at least somewhat capable. I think if you're already able to finish Grineer and Corpus lich railjack missions, you shouldn't have any issue here, but in case your railjack is pretty vanilla still, then my personal recommendation would be stock up on at least health and armor for the railjack, give it 2 crew members with high gunnery skill, and then at least somewhat decent weaponry, so that your crew can take care of all the small stuff around you. However, I also have some very good news to share here, and that would be that currently Warframe's 12th anniversary event is happening. If you want to know more about that, I already have a video on it. But the main thing here is that the 4 Dex weapons, the Dex Dakra, the Dex Furis, the Dex Nikana, as well as the Dex Sibaris, will return as part of that event. And in case you already have all of those, you can just sell off the duplicates and keep the free weapon slots that you got in the process. This will be very nice, especially given that we get so many new lich weapons with the update, so you already have quite a bit more inventory space. And another thing, also as part of the anniversary event, the weekend from April 11th to April 14th, there will be a double affinity weekend, making it much easier to level weapons and warframes. So my recommendation would be, in case you're not in a rush with the new Technocyte Coda weapons, just farm some of those weapons first and then use this double affinity weekend to level all of them really quickly. By the way, if you wanted to speed up the whole process even more, you could even go so far to buy a 3-day affinity booster, because that stacks with the double affinity from the double affinity weekend, so you would get 4 times the XP. But just like with all lich weapons, also the technocyte weapons will go up to level 40, and that means they will require 5 forma each to get to their maximum potential. So, in case you haven't yet, then definitely start crafting some forma in your foundry, because you're gonna need a lot. And one more thing that I wanted to remind you about here is, with the new update, we're also going to have the Aura Forma changed into the Omni Forma, which will then be able to give this universal polarity slot not only to Aura slots, but to any mod slot in the game. Big W in my books, just wanted to mention this again in case you forgot about it. And finally, we need to talk about Platinum again. As I previously said, you might be able to earn a decent sum of it by selling the new augments as well as the new arcanes if you really want to make some money fast, but you probably also want to have a fair chunk of it for the new update, not only because we get 4 new proto-frame skins that you might want to buy, but also because this update is going to be incredibly forma heavy with all the new weapons incoming, plus the exalted weapon changes. Plus, if you're tight on inventory space, you might also think about buying some new weapon slots just to be able to store all the technocyte weapons that you want. However, there is one more very important thing to mention here. Until the update comes out next Wednesday, please be mindful when buying any type of platinum bundle in the Warframe market, because from the new update on, they might get a bit cheaper for you. Here's what I mean. The way it is right now, if you already own a certain item that is part of a bundle, and then you want to buy the bundle, you're unfortunately forced to buy that item that you already have again because the bundle doesn't adjust. But, and this is another big W, with the new update, if you already own certain parts of a bundle, then the bundle price in general is going to be reduced and you only buy those items that you don't have. Keep that in mind so you don't accidentally buy some overpriced bundles that you could have cheaper from next week on. When Techrot Encore releases, we're of course going to talk about all the new content here on this channel. So, if you don't want to miss out on that, day 1, then you might want to consider maybe leaving a sub. Welcome to the crew! Another massive shout out to Niels V, Demon Lord Zell, Demon Emperor, Emperor Prime, Nos Linux Gaming, Turtlepeer, Lycon Shepherd, Anakanio2, Pepperwolf, Mihawky, Hoke Hunter, and all other generous channel members for your continuous support. We see each other, hopefully in the next one, and until then, as always, good loot!